1803 to 1815. What if the thunder you hear on a quiet night isn't just weather rolling in, but the distant echo of cannon fire, the boots of exhausted soldiers dragging through frozen mud, and the whispers of men who never truly left the battlefield? Would you still sleep the same? The story of the Napoleonic Wars begins with rising tension after the fragile Peace of Amiens collapsed on May 18, 1803, when Britain once again declared war on France, setting the stage for over a decade of relentless conflict driven by the unstoppable ambition of Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who didn't just fight wars, he reshaped Europe with them. And by December 2, 1805, at the Battle of Austerlitz, often called the Battle of the Three Emperors, Napoleon lured the combined Russian and Austrian armies into a deadly trap, deliberately weakening his right flank to bait them, then striking with devastating precision, crushing them in hours. Yet, as the sun rose over the battlefield, soldiers described something deeply unsettling: the frozen lakes, where retreating enemy troops fell through cracked ice under artillery fire, drowning in freezing water while cannonballs shattered the surface around them, their screams muffled beneath the ice, a scene so horrifying it haunted survivors for life. And just weeks earlier, on October 21, 1805, the Battle of Trafalgar had already reshaped the war at sea, where British Admiral Horatio Nelson secured naval dominance but paid with his life, dying slowly aboard HMS Victory as the battle still raged. His body later preserved in a barrel of brandy to survive the journey home, a detail so strange it almost feels unreal. Yet it's true, and while the seas belonged to Britain, the land became Napoleon's playground, expanding his empire across Europe, enforcing the continental system in 1806 to economically strangle Britain. But this move ignited resistance, especially in Spain, where, starting in 1808, the Peninsular War turned into a brutal guerrilla conflict, with local fighters ambushing French troops in narrow streets and mountain passes, disappearing like ghosts, leaving behind chaos. And French soldiers began reporting terrifying experiences: entire patrols vanishing overnight, eerie silence in villages that seemed abandoned yet watched, and sudden attacks from shadows that felt less like war and more like being hunted. And then came one of the darkest campaigns in history, the invasion of Russia, launched on June 24, 1812, when Napoleon led over 600,000 troops across the Niemen River, expecting a swift victory, but instead they walked into a nightmare engineered by the Russians, who retreated while burning everything: fields, homes, food supplies, leaving nothing but scorched earth. And when Napoleon reached Moscow on September 14, 1812, he found it eerily empty, a city of silence. And then suddenly, fires erupted across the city, massive flames that turned the sky red, trapping soldiers in a burning labyrinth. And as winter closed in, the retreat became a living horror story. Temperatures dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Men froze where they stood, horses collapsed and were eaten by starving troops. Discipline broke down, and survivors later described seeing figures in the snow, shapes moving just beyond vision. Some swore they heard voices calling their names. Others spoke of soldiers who simply sat down and refused to move, as if something had taken hold of them. And by December 1812, fewer than 100,000 soldiers escaped, a catastrophic loss that shattered Napoleon's aura of invincibility. And sensing weakness, European powers formed the Sixth Coalition, leading to the massive Battle of Leipzig from October 16 to 19, 1813, where over 600,000 soldiers clashed in what became the largest battle in Europe before World War I. And the chaos there was beyond imagination: bridges collapsing under retreating troops, friendly fire incidents in the confusion, and wounded men left screaming as armies moved on, unable to stop, unable to help, until Napoleon was forced back into France, leading to his abdication on April 6, 1814, an exile to Elba. But the story didn't end there, because in March 1815, Napoleon escaped and returned to power in a dramatic comeback known as the 100 Days, rallying troops with sheer charisma, marching toward destiny once more. until June 18, 1815, when everything ended at the Battle of Waterloo, where the forces of Arthur Wellesley and Gebhard Lebrecht von Blücher finally defeated him. And the battlefield of Waterloo became a nightmare landscape of mud, blood, and smoke, where soldiers fought hand to hand in suffocating conditions, cannons blasting at close range, and medics worked in impossible conditions, often under direct fire, amputating limbs without anesthesia, surrounded by piles of the wounded and dying. And one chilling account tells of a medic who kept treating a soldier who wouldn't respond, only to realize hours later that the man had been dead the entire time, his body propped upright by the chaos around him. And even after the guns fell silent, the horror didn't end, because fields were filled with corpses, the air thick with the smell of death, and survivors carried those memories forever. And yet, out of all this darkness, stories of incredible courage emerged: soldiers who carried their wounded comrades for miles, officers who refused to retreat, medics who risked everything to save one more life, proving that even in the worst conditions imaginable, humanity still fought to survive. So now I've got to ask you, after hearing all this, after stepping into the mud, the fire, the freezing cold, and the shadows of war, do you think these battlefields are ever truly silent? Or are they still waiting for someone to remember them?